most of the technologies that we use today are not new. They come from a lot of years back. Data centers for us, you and I, now we tell them cloud, no?
Right.
And stuff like that, no? Like a physical desk now is cloud storage. So I think that in most cases, it's a repackage and rebranding. It's a wonderful opportunity for companies to expand its offering just by changing a name and changing a little bit about their offering. So it's like creating new markets, huh? Yeah. For some old technologies.
We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan. Hola, hello, hi, bienvenido, and welcome back. Or maybe it's your first time with us. Welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers. This is the show where I get to have weekly conversations with some of the best and brightest entrepreneurial thinkers across all sectors and segments of society and industry as we come together in these conversations to do two things. One, to try to kind of understand how to better navigate the complexity of this world that we live and operate in. And then also, hopefully, to glean enough information that we learn a better way, that we kind of learn to how to maybe leave this world a little bit better than we found it before this conversation. Today, I'm really, really grateful, very excited to be joined by an old friend, Luis Perez Galvan. Luis is the founder and CEO of a Latin American technology company called Neogenesys, which we're going to talk a lot about. But much more importantly than that, before I tell you a little bit about him, he is a great friend. He is a huge supporter of the show, of me. We've known each other for quite some time, and so it's a great honor to have this chance to have a conversation with him. So let me tell you a little bit about him before we welcome him in. In our fast-moving world of kind of digitization of business and of our lives, it seems like technology is kind of embedded in our souls. And sometimes we have a choice of how to use it, and sometimes it feels like we have no choice in how to use it, both in our professional lives, in our businesses as executives, as well as in our personal lives. And though most of us think of kind of big tech as this amorphous collection of social media companies, our phones, or the latest AI hype stories that we read about in the news, the more real truth that lies deep behind the scenes of the world of enterprise and business technologies that run the companies and organizations that we all depend on in our day-to-day lives, whether this be the places that we learn, the places that we recreate and entertain ourselves, or the places that we use in service of our lives in government, et cetera. All of these organizations across every part of our lives as human beings are driven by technology on the backbone. And with this in mind, I thought it would be a good time to invite my friend Luis to join us to have a conversation about technology, about how it affects our businesses and therefore our lives, and about his unique success in building a technology company over the last 20 to 30 years that helps other companies across Latin America specifically, which, if you've forgotten from listening to me talk about Latin America on this show for 6 years, right, Latin America is a massive opportunity for the world. It is a massively growing market. It's one of the biggest economic regions in the world, and it is home to more than 700 million people of, as I say from here in Los Angeles, of our neighbors, right? So with over 25 years of experience, Luis has redefined how businesses leverage software applications, virtualized data, and computing power. From his early career at IBM and Sybase to taking on his own entrepreneurial leap to launch Neogenesys in Mexico City, again, some 20 plus years ago, Luis has literally, locally and regionally, partnered with many of the world's biggest technology companies to help local companies and businesses and organizations to customize those products to grow and improve their businesses. But he's also, beyond that, a great person, a friend, a technologist, a master relationship builder with a keen leadership sense, who's built his firm up from an idea into a thriving mission critical partner for clients throughout Latin America. As I said in the beginning, like, I've had the great pleasure of knowing him. We found each other through technology, but we've become great friends over the years. We see each other every once in a while. We haven't seen each other in quite some time, but we are seeing each other now, today, which is one of the great benefits of me hosting this podcast, is I get to sometimes have live conversations with my old friends about all the different things we're thinking about and working on. So welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers, Luis. It's great to have you today, buddy.
Thank you, Rob. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We are talking to you, just set a geographic frame for everybody. I said, I'm here in Los Angeles. Where are you joining us from today?
Today we're in Montevideo, Uruguay. We're just expanding over here to this South American market, and we're just opening an office and those kind of things. So it's very exciting times for us over here.
That's awesome. Yes, the roots of our relationship were in Mexico, and then in Mexico City, we've worked, collaborated. I've helped you guys out once or twice with different things across Mexico. But you recently, you and your spouse have moved to Uruguay, to Montevideo, another city and a country that I've had the good pleasure of visiting and spending some time in over the last 10 years. And that's essentially, for folks who don't understand its relationship to kind of the rest of South America, it's an amazing gateway to the opportunities in Argentina, which is a very vibrant entrepreneurial economy, and of course is then a gateway to opportunities throughout the region: Chile, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So exciting times for the business for you, and exciting times for you personally to kind of be exploring a new chapter in your life at this point, which is really, really cool.
Definitely, it's been a challenging time because. As you correctly mentioned, Uruguay for us is a strategic place to be. We were looking at different options or of what country would be the best for us to have a physical office here. And we were between Chile, Peru, and of course Uruguay. No? And we chose Uruguay basically because of its strategic geographic location. It's a little bit southern, below of Brazil, very close to Argentina. So we have just a 2-hour trip by boat, and we're 2 hours from Brazil. We're around 2 hours and a half from Peru and Chile, in particular. So I think we're in a strategic location. And from here, the idea is that my company in Mexico already has presence in most countries of Latin already for over 18 years. But the reason to be here in Uruguay is that we want to enhance that physical and entrepreneurial activities. Also, it makes sense when you come down here, and actually know the people. You know?
Sure.
Most of the time, we do web conference calls and those kind of stuff remotely, and we have some very good relationships in over past years, but it's very different when you arrive and go to their office, or they come to us and we meet and we talk about many stuff. I think that's different, and that's exactly the plan we're starting to put into place, and also trying to use.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Chisos Capital. Everyone knows that raising capital is hard. And frankly, finding the next pool of entrepreneurs to get access to as limited investors is sometimes impossible too. Do you have a big idea, a dream you're building, but you're struggling to find early funding? Well, Chisos is changing the game for founders, creators, athletes, and investors. Whether you're launching a startup, growing your creative brand, or training for the big leagues, Chisos backs you. Chisos uniquely invests up to $100,000 in people, not just products, whether they be entrepreneurs, creators, or even athletes. With their unique CISA model, convertible income share agreements, founders get flexible funding without giving up equity or ownership, and investors get attractive returns and great upside with less risk. Chisos works for both investors and the people bringing our world to life. If you're seeking access to a truly diverse pool of deals, or you're someone who feels overlooked by the VC game, Chisos is ready to back you. So apply now at chisos.io.
And strengthen the relationships with the current resellers and recruit new resellers.
Yeah,
and so I think it's interesting.
As you say, and you've already kind of enlightened us, the listeners in our community already, right? If they've listened to me over the last 6 years, they've heard me say it a million times, especially in Latin America, relationships, like personal relationships and the ability to spend time with one another in person, physically in front of one another is absolutely critical. I mean, relationships are important everywhere and in every business market, right? But in this particular case, in the cultural varieties of both Mexico, Central America, and now South America, like personal relationships are really the differentiator. So hugely strategic move. One I've been really excited to watch you pull off over the last 6 months, but excited to help see where it goes from here in the next 10 years of your life. All right. So we've got a lot to talk about. This kind of first question that was kind of eating at me a little bit to get us started, right, is as I was thinking about us and having this conversation, and then thinking about all the other conversations that I get to have, right, in this seat that I sit in for this show, is it seems to me like over the last 30 years, and a lot of people who listen to this show might not even know my full background in history before they've met me in this last decade. But 30 years ago, at the height of the internet boom and Internet 1.0 and the kind of bursting of the Silicon Valley technology boom across the country, I was in that world, right? And I sold in that world. I lived in that world. And so I come from that place. So for me, over this last 30 years, it seems to me like we've heard about like many of essentially kind of the same fundamental technologies, but repackaged or represented for a lot of different purposes, right? So we've heard about like machine learning and big data and virtual computing and cloud computing and everything kind of as a service, right? Software and now everything is AI. And in some ways, a lot of those things kind of trace their roots back to the same things, even though we call them something different. So help us understand from an executive decision-making standpoint, maybe, or from a consumer standpoint, like what's really different about today's technologies, or is there nothing really different about today's technologies?
That's a very interesting question. As you correctly mentioned, most of the technologies that we use today are not new. They come from a lot of years back. Like data centers for us, you and I, now we tell them cloud, no?
Right.
So and stuff like that, no? Like if a physical desk now is cloud storage, those kind of things. No? So I think that in most cases, it's a repackage and rebranding, as you say. It's a wonderful opportunity for companies to expand its offering just by changing a name and changing a little bit about their offering. So it's like creating new markets, no? For some old technologies. Now, that being said, there are definitely new approaches, like for example, like AI, for example. I think it's more than a trend. Is a little more than a fashion. It's something. It's a topic that everyone is speaking about, but at least to my eyes, few people really know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And with no disrespect, no.
Sure.
But sometimes you ask someone about inference, they don't know the difference between doing an inference or doing ChatGPT or training, those kind of stuff, and those things are really different.
By the way, I'm one of those people that doesn't know the difference between some of those things nowadays because there's so many nuances to this. I have
Right.
kind of a follow-on question, I guess, now that you mentioned AI, which thank you. Right. In this business world, let's just talking about it from the business perspective, kind of the enterprise space, like in that world where AI is taking over and supposedly at least taking over so many functions, right? Like so much workflow. And in that world, I'm really curious about kind of two aspects of this I was thinking about this morning that you are literally expert in over these last 30 years. Like, how do we deal with in a world where AI is the thing, I was going to say person almost, right? Is the resource doing the work that is creating the spreadsheets or the databases or the code or the whatever. How do we deal with cybersecurity and data security? Like when it's not humans producing most of the data, how are we to understand how to deal with securing that data then?
Okay, that's a very good question as well, bro. That's a big challenge for all of us as engineers and security persons. Um, I think that one approach in which has been very keen from many vendors is to offer AI in a SaaS mode. That is that you use AI platforms which are based on public clouds. No? It could be Google's, or it can be AWS, or it can be Azure's, whatever. No, and you consume APIs, and you consume models on demand, and it's a reality that cost wise, that's a little bit expensive with time. Even though if you use it on a moderate level or high level, if you develop software using those kind of tokens and those kinds of services, by the end of the month, you will be surprised about how
Okay.
much money you invest. No? So it's a huge investment.
I've
No?
just in like the last 3-4 months, I've found myself reading some articles about that, right? Which is this idea that there are now some corporate executives who, last year they were all in on AI. AI is going to transform our efficiency and productivity, therefore our profits, but it's also going to help us like get rid of a lot of staff, right? So we're going to have fewer humans. AI is going to, this is good. And now I'm reading articles about like some of those executives now, 9 months, a year later going, whoa, wait a minute. AI is costing me more than humans would to do the same work. Like maybe I should go back and hire some more humans and replace the AI. So explain this, that the usage model could actually become more costly exponentially.
Oh yeah. Yes, definitely. That's something that we have done in our company, Neogenesys. We have done some research and some consulting about that. And what we have found is that in many cases, if you develop software, or you give, for example, all of your employees access to open without any restrictions in terms of tokens or time, uh, access to an AI model, your costs will definitely increase in a geometric way. No, now, fortunately, there are options to fight that. Okay,
Okay.
but you need to have humans involved, of course, which is always good, and you have to have guardrails, of course. Guardrails. Many people are not acquainted with the tools available from, let's say, NVIDIA, the NIM, for example, platform, which is a fantastic um, engine for building software applications and agents and those kind of things. There are also Qualcomm's AI Hub, for example, which is a very powerful solution as well. They have guardrails, and now those guardrails are basically the tools that we as humans or developers can use to secure and limit the amount of private information that is shared with public clouds and public AI. Okay. So that means that, for example, you can develop an application that can give access to AI to a specific employee for their specific use case, but stops.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at eSudo. Running any business, but especially a law firm, means balancing a lot. And technology, frankly, shouldn't be a headache. eSudo makes information technology and cybersecurity simple for law firms large or small. With over 20 years of experience, they specialize in everything from Microsoft 365 management to advanced cybersecurity solutions. They help you to stay ahead of threats, manage your data securely, and keep your tech running smoothly so that you can focus on what matters most, your clients. eSudo understands the legal industry's unique needs, offering tailored solutions to ensure that your firm is always in compliance and always protected. Are you ready to upgrade your firm's technology or get help with your questions? Visit esudo.com.
That person from sharing, let's say, like credit card numbers or social security numbers or bank accounts, any type of information that you qualify as confidential and private. Okay, then and those guardrails prevent that information from being sent to generally available AI clouds. So that's one way to go, and that implements and that requires some programming, some development from the company side. But if you want to use like OpenAI or any other Claude or any other model or any other AI out there, you can secure some of the information that you share with those type of cartridges. Now, there's a second option as well, and that's the option that we are pushing recently,
Okay.
and that's the idea of running AI locally, on-prem, on the edge.
Okay.
That means hardware. Yes, you need to buy hardware,
Yep.
not a $200 laptop. You need to invest, interestingly, on the machine that you require. Obviously, you can use NVIDIA's hardware, GPUs, or the ones that we are pushing, which are Qualcomm's, which are an excellent option, very a lot cost effective, and they use power more intelligently than NVIDIA. So they're low power consumption, 150 watts per card. You don't need any fans or any special cooling for these cards. They're passively cooled, and they have 870 TOPS, which is a huge capacity of processing speed.
And if I'm hearing it correctly, and dusting off my old technology business development brain here for a second, so what some of the benefits of doing this is like cost predictability, cost controls potentially, but then also some security layers of security. It's maybe hypothetically more secure or differently secure or differently able to be secured, and then less dependency upon the kind of the business model whims of fancies of the big provider and their data centers and their offsite stuff. Okay, so in some ways, in this modern 2026 heading to like 2050 world, we're back to, or we're still debating, or we're back to debating the old things that you and I used to talk about 25, 30 years ago, which was like buy versus build, right? Or on-site versus off-site. And there are still some fundamentally valuable propositions in that choice for making the investment locally inside of your company.
Yes, of course. The thing is that unfortunately, this knowledge is not widely spread. Because obviously the AI companies want you to continue to consume services in the cloud, because that's their winning point.
So not only are you like making a case for the better efficient or potentially more efficient choice for the client locally, but you're essentially acting, in this case, you and those that are selling these types of products or services, you're essentially acting as kind of the societal antidote to this whole like mass data center. We're going to put data centers on every green field. We're going to suck up all the water, use all the energy, like basically deplete the planet in the name of data centers for these like big 5 AI companies. You guys are saying, whoa, hold on. You can have the same capabilities and the access to the same cutting edge forward technologies, but you can do it in a much more cost efficient, environmentally conscious / business appropriate approach for your own company.
Exactly. And that's exactly our sweet spot, because, for example, let's say a company can develop some agents and they can use some agents for very specific activities, but perhaps you can cut down, for example, the general availability of a public AI.
Yeah.
So that means that you can even mix and match models as you require. No? That means that, for example, you can run up to 4 different models at the same time on the same GPU. For example, that's possible with Qualcomm's engine.
Okay.
And so that's very interesting, because in those developments are multi-user as well. So that means that you can set up services that may be using AI for a specific task, and then interacting with your database and your ERP or your CRM or whatever application you're running in your enterprise. So and specifically the highest benefit is that since those models will not be communicating with the internet in any way, they will be completely locked down and completely private.
Okay.
That means that they will not be sharing or sending any data on the back end to their developers.
Right.
So you can use other models more freely and a little bit more comfortable.
Which is another, so that's kind of another aspect of the secured conversation, is is not just from the purest sense of like picturing like security locks, gate, that kind of stuff, but more the idea of the security of the information that exists inside of the unique intellectual property ownership of a company or of an organization of people. So now you sound a lot like one of our other alumni that was on the show earlier this spring, Matt Wright, who works in the AI space on the very front edge of agentic stuff. And Matt is very much of the philosophy of like what I call the kind of individual ownership of the intellectual value that we create, and the use of and development of AI agents in a way that allows and empowers individuals. So he's very much like exploring that through his companies and their investments, is this idea of how can we have kind of what you're saying, like how can we have the maximum capability, right? But do it in a way that isn't, again, just kind of handing it all over to these 5 tech bros, and these basically mega monopolies that are, as you say, kind of trying to tell us that like, hey, this is the only way it can be done. Like, trust us. This is the way we did the internet. It's like, whoa, dude, we've learned our lessons like 30 years later. Like maybe we should have pushed back a little bit. That's fascinating to hear about at the enterprise. Let's do this. Yeah. I want to switch up the order a little bit because I think this is just a great time for us to tell people more about Neogenesys, right? So this is kind of like your business commercial. So the business part of me is curious, like kind of, talk to us about like what the company is, who are your clients, who's the ideal clients, who are the clients you do business with, where you do business, kind of the business model part, right? The old, how do you make money without, you don't have to tell us any secrets, but just kind of the like, this is how we charge for our services or those types of things. So tell us a little bit about that part of the story, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
Okay. Well, first of all, Neogenesys has just went 26. So we have 26 years in business. This is great. This is a fantastic achievement for us.
Huge.
We have many years, approximately around 15 to 18, serving all of Latin America and the Caribbean. We have our own chain of resellers in all of these countries. Approximately, we should be around 500 resellers, approximately. So that's a very interesting number. And the technologies that we usually offer is a remote access platform, very similar to RDS, Microsoft RDS, which solves remote access to ERPs and CRMs, those kind of things. And this tool has allowed us to work with many of the most important ERPs in the world. So we're talking about SAP, and we're talking about local ERPs and accounting packages. Huh?
Okay.
So we have over, I suppose, close to 5 million users in Latin America of our products and technology, just the remote access piece. And we've been very successful selling that software for a long time.
Do we sell just through the resellers, or does the company do any direct business with enterprise clients itself?
We do both. For example, we usually, our model is, of course, mostly done through resellers. Because obviously, we need volume and we need to help other countries, other corporations to grow as well. But also, we have some direct accounts, like the most important ones, or the ones which offer or that require a little bit more specific or more specialized technical advice. Those are the ones that we usually attend directly.
Okay, sure. And then
they're the lower ones.
Sorry for interrupting. So is the primary business model then it's a mix of the sale of hardware packages, hardware tools, et cetera, and then also services, or is it, is it like kind of on a project basis, or is it on a SaaS kind of subscription basis? How does the business model, when clients engage with you or through your resellers, how are they doing that?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have different products, and each product has its own model. For example, we have products that offer perpetual licensing, which is very efficient in terms of pricing and cost in terms of time. That's very, very interesting. We also offer software in a rental, not necessarily SaaS, but just the rent of the software. And they are free to implement wherever it makes sense. It can be on their hardware, on their cloud, whatever they need. We have some other products that are basically like subscriptions with prepaid access, like per year. That's another model that we have.
Yeah.
And we're a little bit towards right now finalizing a development of the software piece internally that will allow us to offer completely automated SaaS models of our products.
Okay.
We have some of our products published in Huawei Cloud, for example, in the marketplace. We were the first company in Latin America to have a software product directly available in Huawei's marketplace. That's very interesting. Um,
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Shore Capital. In today's venture capital world, it's not just about cash, it's about relationships. Capital is harder to find, limited investors have fewer managers that they can trust, and the industry is just filled with far too much hype. Shore Capital is an early stage venture fund investing in the world's most ruthlessly iterative founders, helping its limited partners to find founders who are solving the world's most dynamic problems, teams that excel in mastering the idea maze, teams moving with a rapid iterative velocity and demonstrating radical resourcefulness. Shore Capital doesn't just write checks though. They become fractional co-founders when needed, offering strategic support, high leverage relationship development, and a deep commitment to the long-term success of their portfolio companies. If you are a ruthlessly iterative founder with a bold vision or a limited investor seeking sustained access to the brightest big thinkers of our time, Shore Capital wants to meet you. So visit shorecapital.notion.site to learn more.
Success that we have. We're in the process of doing that with Google and some other vendors.
Awesome.
So anyone can buy or can license that software directly on their marketplaces. So that's interesting.
And although the company was founded and originally built, and most of the team still sits in Mexico City, obviously, as you talked about before, you have planted the flag, so to speak, in Uruguay and Montevideo. You articulated wonderfully how it's so attached to the markets in South America. Do you see over this next 10 years, kind of the growth of the business? Do you see growth of resellers relationships and then growth of just general business in South America being kind of the next big piece that caps this all off before you retire and just go hang out at the beach?
No, definitely. Our plans is to expand to other countries in Latam as well, probably Peru, Chile. We have been having a lot of business in those countries in the last couple of years, and also we have been having very good news from Argentina. Fortunately, their situation is getting better with time, and that's a huge market for us, and that's a main reason we are very close to them. From Uruguay, it's a 2-hour boat trip.
Yeah, literally. For folks that don't know, there's literally a ferry that goes back and forth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's called the Buquebus. It's very, very convenient for all of us. It's just a 2-hour trip, and you're directly in Buenos Aires, so you're very close to them. So that's a market that definitely I have very good expectations for the next couple of years, and we have seen a lot of interest in our products and technologies.
That's awesome.
So that's interesting.
That's great. Yeah. I'm curious, you've been around for a long time. You've earned those gray hairs that we both have, right? So you've seen things shift, just from a how doing business standpoint. How have you seen things shift in Mexico, your home country, and then how have you seen? You just alluded to kind of the Argentina example, but how have you been seeing things shift? Over the last 10 or 20 years in 20 years is almost too long, really, because 20 years in Latin America is like 500 years everywhere else, right? So in the last decade, basically, since you and I've known each other, how have you seen things change as far as doing business in Mexico and growth there, or doing business in South America?
Well, definitely, it's been something interesting that we have been observing, because Mexico is a huge market in terms of potential. It's a wonderful country. I love my country, and I love every single piece of it. But I think that if you really want to be successful, you need to see what's available near. So, for example, Mexico is a very strategic location. We are very close to the US, but also very close to South America, to Central and then South America. But we are very far, for example, from Argentina
Yeah, no, I
or
used to,
Brazil.
I used to joke when I
Hmm.
lived in Chile, I would say that like the most endearing thing about Chile is that it's like 10,000 miles from everywhere, right? Like,
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
the only thing
It's in the middle of.
yeah, I used to say the only thing
Mhm.
that I love my Chilean friends, but I used to say the only thing that Chile close to is Argentina and they hate each other, right?
Exactly. No? So that's something that we needed to evaluate and decide. And also, I see that, for example, countries like Peru or Colombia or Chile, of course, are growing a lot. There are a lot of interest, a lot of corporations being open there. They have a lot of the requirements and needs for companies like us, for example, for the products and technologies that we hopefully, fortunately sell and offer. So we've been very successful in those markets. Huh? But I think that we can be more successful. So the idea of growing over here and coming down here is precisely to be present, to allow us to, so they can know us physically. So we can shake hands, no,
Yeah,
and talk about football or soccer or whatever, some other stuff, and see what else can we help them with.
yeah.
We're always open to help many companies.
I'm
So, for example, even
go ahead. Sorry.
if a company tells us, for example, look, we're very interested in this technology or that product specifically, and that's something that we are not carrying currently. We invest time investigating, really digging into that opportunity. And if we evaluate that it's something that can be interesting to other countries and other customers, we will definitely integrate that into our portfolio. Definitely. And that's how, for example, we're entering the IoT space, for example. We're entering the edge AI slash on-prem because of examples like this, no?
Where
There are real
customers were saying
needs.
like, "Hey, we have real
Yes.
needs that would
Yep.
serve our business better. Can you help us with that?" And your answer is yes. We
Exactly.
have all the relationships, we have all the technical
Right.
know-how.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's something that we usually do a lot, which is listen to your customer. That's rule
Great
number
lesson.
one of business.
Great
Okay.
lesson.
So I think that if we listen to our customers, sometimes you can be very successful just by really listening to them, no, and see
Sure.
what their pain is.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
can we help them with, and those kind of things.
100%
And
true.
and it's the same with services, no? For example, if a customer comes and say, "Hey, can you implement this solution?" Of course, we can help you. If we know how to do it, we can of course help you, no?
Yeah.
And that's why we came to be like a distributor for Canonical, for Ubuntu and all of the products, because a lot of companies are looking for alternative environments.
Sure.
So I think Linux it's a very key piece of all this equation.
Still.
Most of AI runs on Linux, not on Windows.
Okay.
So that's a very interesting approach. And we have a very good relationship with Qualcomm recently. That's one of our latest partners that we're very proud to announce. And we had a booth in America Digital about 2 weeks ago in Mexico City,
Yep.
and our stand was a huge success
Okay.
because
So
a lot
lots
of
of
people
interest.
were. Yes, especially because of the local AI edge on-prem technologies and those kind
Fascinating.
of things, which was completely new. A lot of companies offered like the regular voice agents for account
Yeah.
payable, account receivables, all the stuff, which is very interesting. But you had like 8 vendors offering the same thing,
Right.
and
Not
that's
not
interesting.
a ton of differentiation, and basically all pitching essentially the same solution story.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So we went to their booth and offered our products, and they were amazed. I'm running right now in AWS or in Azure or in OpenAI. Well, how much do you spend per month just by using your AI in the cloud? versus buying a hardware like this.
This is going to be a
And
fault line that, as you opened it up in the beginning of the conversation, it's going to be a fault line in enterprise and medium business decision making and
yeah,
government agencies and whatnot
yep.
that no one really, as you said, very few people are talking about.
Hmm.
And this will be universally true. So for our listeners that are not plugged in Latin America, but are operating here in Los Angeles or in California or across the United States or in Europe, or Asia, this fault line, this is actually going to be a decision-making talking point that will be
Hmm.
coming up in boardrooms and back rooms, a lot more than just this, pick cloud, pick ChatGPT, pick Gemini, right, which seems to be what they're trying to herd us all into doing. I'm curious if you find what I'm about to say, if you find this true. I found one of the things, I was talking about it with someone actually earlier this morning, unrelated, but I found when I was in Latin America significantly, right, 2015 to 2020,
Hmm.
it wasn't that enterprises or government agencies or, the big organizations, it wasn't that they weren't digitized. It's just that they were 15 years or 20 years behind. And I don't say this even dismissively. It's just I would stand in line at the bank in Chile, and it wasn't that the bank didn't understand the modern world or the modern customer. It's just that their systems and their business processes, their workflows were kind of in 1980s America, right? As opposed to
Right.
2015 America. And
Hmm.
subsequently, as I've monitored, so it changed my thinking. This is a long-winded explanation for a question, but bear with me. It changed my thinking from always thinking about progress as a ladder, right? Which we
Hmm.
often describe things as oh, Chile or Argentina is behind the United States on the ladder, as if there's one top spot and then everybody has to catch up and then we're all at the same ladder. And it changed my thinking to thinking about it more as a linear, kind of like a piece of railroad track was my visual all the time. And we're all
Hmm.
on the same track. It's just that some societies or industries are just further ahead or further along on the track, and then others are just trailing it. But eventually everybody passes through the same point on the track, right? So I've noticed back then, okay, there were a lot of industries, government agencies, banks, finance, all these retail, huge grocery companies, which dominate Latin America, big retailers. They were curious about ERP. They were curious about CRM. They were dabbing their toes into some of it, or they were using it in the way that we used it here in the 1990s. Right. But eventually they will be using it and they will kind of move along the track and they'll be using it like modern societies use it in 2020. Right. And the
Right.
gaps may close because eventually the leaders are always out there trying the new stuff. Right. So I'm curious if you
Hmm.
agree with that assessment, one, and then how do you see the rapid, is it at an accelerated pace? Do you see digitization of these big enterprise organizations in Latin America happening at a faster pace now in 2026 than it was in 2015? Or where are we at on that spectrum?
Okay. I think there's a mix. Definitely, you're right in your approach. I think that another factor that needs to be included into that um, thought process is budget. As you know, in Latin America, we're very susceptible to budgets and
Right.
costs.
Sure.
And even though perhaps an ERP, an ERP or CRM or an accounting package are a required element for any company, any size, usually they found a hard stop because of the financial situation. Some companies are struggling. In the last 5 or 10 years, there are many niche markets that have been practically closed because they are not relevant anymore, and some new ones open. So there's a lot of changes in evolution in different technologies and companies as well. But even though you may be very keen to implement new technologies or new pieces of software, you always will have a hard stop with pricing
Yeah, of
and
course.
in budgets.
But
And that happens.
budget sensitivity is a big deal.
Yes, exactly. No, that's why open source projects, for example, like Linux and Ubuntu or any other type of let's say perhaps not open source, but something like where you give away, or you include the software and you just charge for services, for example. Those kind of things make more sense that any other business model, no?
Okay.
But that depends on the country or even the company that you're.
And the time
Mhm.
in the time period in history where that country's at. Right. Like that's the dynamic. I'm curious, kind of pulling off of this a little bit, like, so what do you see some of the bigger technology opportunities are there than in Latin America over,
Mhm.
say, this next 10 years?
Well, definitely. In general, software development is big. Is big. We have three countries in Latin America which are the leaders in terms of AI development, and those are Chile, Uruguay, and Colombia and Mexico. No, of course, Mexico is included in that list, so we're four. We're four countries, and we see a lot of SaaS as well, but also a lot of companies evaluating the option of moving away from clouds
Okay.
and put them. I think that some applications make sense in the cloud, like email, those kind of things that are everyday. So that's not an issue. But if you run your ERP, perhaps you should run it privately on your own servers, no? As well as some agents or some AI applications that may use sensitive
Yeah.
information, or private. It makes sense to put in locally. No, so I think a hybrid approach. I think that's the best. That's the best combination, which I see in the next couple of years. Huh?
And
And you need tools for that. Mhm.
does the budget sensitivity, right? So the just again, fragile economies, and when they're growing,
Mhm.
and they have to make their purchases, and when they're not, they're retrenched a bit. So does that budget sensitivity then lend itself to this kind of, hey, more thoughtful, localized, hybrid like, in other words, is your story that you're pitching out to the world like being received a bit better than it might be in some markets where they're like, stop it, I'm chasing the hype over here, like I don't want to
Mhm.
listen to you because you're not cool, like you're super practical, but like over here they're telling me it's going to change the world, and budget isn't our concern, so we can chase that. So because the markets are more budget sensitive, are they therefore more open to like the creativity of your solutions, do you think?
Mhm. Well, actually, this approach is brand new. So we started
Yeah.
pushing it 2 weeks ago,
Okay. So, okay.
but it's really new. But in the event, for example, we were very successful, and the customers were really receptive. No,
Yeah.
so perhaps in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, well,
We'll know. We'll
I
better.
can have more real first-hand information. But definitely, we see a lot of interest, no? Because we're pitching exactly the opposite of
Yeah.
what everyone is
Right.
used to listening, no?
And
Yeah.
interesting, because let's to not lose sight of, you've talked about the vast majority of your business comes through these networks of these partners, these resellers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
500 of them you talked about, I think, which is amazing.
About.
That's a huge number.
Mhm.
And so in some ways, your story is like, to your partners is like, hey, we're going to help you to differentiate yourself in your local market with your customer base of whatever type of
Exactly.
particular industry you're focused on or you're expert in, or you have all your
Mhm.
relationships in the legal field. So we're going to help you come in and pitch this alternative, and we'll support you, right? But you're the guy on the street or the girl on the street that's out there pitching it in the boardroom in Cordoba or in
Whatever.
Medellin or wherever it might be, right? And so we're going to
Mhm.
help. We're going to hear from you what they said, and then we're going to help you
Mhm.
adapt those responses. So that's interesting, right?
Exactly.
Because you're helping essentially the smaller, more localized entrepreneur with their business to position themselves, as you say, kind of as
Mhm.
this little bit of this antidote to the kind of general hyper fast scaled sales pitch
Mhm.
that is overwhelming the world right now. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
I'm curious, and you don't have to disclose anything because we haven't talked as much about this network growth of the partnerships. You're at roughly 500 already, and that was, again, mostly built with your tentacles reaching out from Mexico City.
Mhm.
But now you're planting
Right.
yourself in the market. And so you're able to build relationships across the regions, and you will build more. Is there a number, and you don't have to share what it is, I'm just curious, is there like a fantasy number of net new numbers of partner resellers that you will add over the next 5 years because of your being present in the neighborhood?
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
The expectations are very into that. Definitely, I will be very happy if we can grow at least on like 30%, 40%. I think
Okay.
that's a very good number, because I think we have the products, we have the expertise, and I think that our speech is completely different from any other technology vendor. No?
Yeah.
And also we are not very extremely selective in terms of resellers. So we don't initially like, for example, like automatically discard like small companies or individuals.
Right.
For example, from our potential partners, we usually welcome any type or any size of company, and I think that has been a something key for our success.
Sure.
Because we can work with large consulting companies, or we can work with one or two guy company.
Yeah.
And we want to make those two big companies or small companies successful.
Yeah.
Selling our products.
No, and
because,
they are the extensions of you. I mean, they are Neogenesys on the ground in those communities.
Of course. Yeah. And they have their own base of customers, and they have their own expertise as well in certain verticals or anything like that. So I think that we accept everyone.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have some certification exams, and it's not easy, no.
Sure.
But
Sure.
the ones who can do that successfully, they are highly trained, and they know our products, which is something that is important for us.
Yeah. No, a couple of kind of a little bit more personal questions here towards the end before we finish up in our last segment. This one is this is like, I've admired this about you from the beginning, and it's such a rare story. You know, a lot of the people who listen to or consume our show are like, let's call them more like high tech startup type of investors or entrepreneurs in that sense. One of the admirable traits of you is that you, just like the partners you just described who work with your firm in these different countries, that's kind of how you built up your business. That's how you built up Neogenesys. So you were not a venture funded, investor backed business from the beginning. So take me back to the beginning a little bit and just talk to me about like your own personal decision to forego your stable, predictable corporate career and nice salary. And like, you could have done that for your whole life very easily. And frankly, most people in Mexico probably would have been like, that's a good choice, right? But you didn't. You stepped away from these big companies that you had experiences with in your career, and you decided to take this entrepreneurial leap, and you did it betting on yourself. Like you didn't do it to raise venture capital and scale this company. So talk to me a little bit about that decision at that point in your life, and then just kind of what it's been like to build a business that you effectively own all of, right? Without any outside partners.
Okay, no, definitely. Okay, definitely. I had the privilege of working at IBM for around 7 years, approximately. It's a fantastic place to work. I changed then to Sybase, the database company, and that's a fantastic company as well. I learned a lot from both of them, but then I decided that the corporate life was not for me. I had some bad experiences. So I decided, no, I want to do, at that time, the technology that was buoyant was multimedia, the CDs, the interactive CDs. So after being in those companies, I started, my first company as an individual was making interactive CDs. So just imagine how far back we're talking about.
Yeah,
no?
exactly.
So I could invest a little bit of money, so I had all my CD recording stuff, my gear, my computer, everything, and I believe it or not, I was pretty successful doing that for a couple of years. And then I founded some other companies, and then I decided to go and founded Neogenesys in year 2000. So, And from that time to now, I'm very happy, and I'm always very welcome, and I really um, I'm very grateful, no, for life to pointing me into this direction. And definitely all my team, we have very small rotation in my team. Basically, the same persons that we founded the company, they're still our employees so
Wow.
far. So we have veterans
Yeah,
in our in
very
our
much so. A
in our,
lot of
in our,
experience.
in our team, and I think that's also a key for our success, because we have been very successful. Of course, we had some bad times as well. Of course, as any other company, we have ups and downs.
Sure.
But I think we have had more ups than downs, and we as a team have been very successful and very privileged in the decisions that we've taken, and the path and the relationships with the corporates, like the companies we work with right now.
Yeah.
And we're in our best spirit and emotions and ideas and thoughts to be successful. No, so
I love that.
our passion is technology, and bringing the first world technology to emerging markets. That's
Yeah.
our slogan, and I think that we have done a very good job doing that
Yeah.
in the last
100%.
years. No? So
And carved out a beautiful life for yourself along the way, right?
yes,
Which is
definitely.
that's the goal, right? We
Hmm.
sometimes we work to live, or we live to work in too many societies, right? And you've worked to live, right? You've enabled yourself to live the life that you want as an entrepreneur, as opposed to the corporate worker, which is amazing. All right, last question.
Hmm.
And we'll do this question a little bit different. So this is kind of
Hmm.
a little bit more of like kind of an actionable takeaways for the folks that are listening.
Okay.
What are three of, let's just say, the most important trends in technology that every leader, no matter what sector or segment of society that they're working in or leading in, what are
Hmm.
three really important technology trends that they should be paying attention to? Not necessarily the most trendy or the hottest ones, but
Hmm.
I'm looking for you more to provide kind of the mission critical perspective, right? So like, what are the three things that no matter what everybody else is talking about, that you're here to tell executive decision makers, like, you got to be paying attention to these three technology trends?
Hmm. Okay. I think the first one is not a technology trend, but it's basically that you need to identify the nature of your workloads.
Okay.
That's something very important. Why? Because if you know that, you can decide which load to put, and make sense to put that on the cloud, and which load you can put locally. Okay, that's for me. That's essential. The first one. Now, talking about technologies, of course, AI must be present as a tool for aiding humans to be
Okay.
more productive. Okay,
Love that.
and the other one is basically in terms of multi-cloud and those approaches. I believe that hybrid environment approach. I think that's the one which will be um, a winner. Let's say no, not totally in cloud, not totally on premise, but hybrid definitely
Yeah.
because of the first point I was
Yeah,
mentioning.
right.
No.
You're betting
Hmm.
also, as we talked about earlier in the episode, you're betting as essentially kind of the antidotal alternative path
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
way that this is all being marketed and pushed at us,
Hmm.
and at us
Exactly.
as decision makers, as well as consumers.
Exactly.
That's
Hmm.
awesome. I love that. It's one of the things I love about you as a friend, is over these years is like, I mean, you are a technologist. You're a technology nerd compared to
Yeah.
me, who's much more of like the business technology guy. But you have over the decades that we've known each other now, you have become such a great people person. Like, you are such a natural person. Like, you're a natural people person. You're a natural connector. As I said before, you're really a great relationship builder, and
Thanks.
nurturer of relationships, which is so important today, no matter whether you're doing it in person in the neighborhood there in Uruguay, or you're doing it in virtually over Zoom and phone calls and WhatsApp and all the other tools that we have. And I could see why you have loyal employees. I can also see why you have loyal reseller partners and then loyal customers through them. It's refreshing today. And thank you for not only spending the time with me and helping share this context, but also kind of illuminating this idea that I honestly we haven't really had anybody on the show talk about this kind of fissure that exists in these decisions about our present technology decisions that we're all making around AI and data centers and data and all the cloud, all this stuff. Like, you've presented to us kind of an alternative path for all of us to consider in this, instead of just shouting down the big tech bros. Like, we can say, like, hey, like, we can admit that the technology is important and transformational, but we can also admit that there are ways to explore deploying it and applying it in ways that are maybe better for the business, you as a customer, but also better for the world and better for the environment.
Of course.
And I did not anticipate that part coming into today's conversation, which is the fun of these conversations. I learn something new every time. And that's a big breakthrough. So thank you, buddy. It was so much fun, such a pleasure. Thank you I know it's evening in your life there on a Thursday in Uruguay. It's morning here, early midday, my time here in Los Angeles. So I really appreciate you putting in the time to share some time with us after hours.
My pleasure, Rob. Anytime I'll be available.
Always love that. Okay. So if people want to find or follow Neogenesys online or the website or your email, like however, LinkedIn, whatever, socials, give us some of those details now so we can make sure we can put them in the show.
Okay. You can find me in LinkedIn, which is basically the social network I mostly use. I don't use other ones. You can find me by my name, Luis Perez Galvan, or Neogenesys. That's Neogenesys with a Y of systems. Okay, .com.
Awesome.
That's the website. And if anyone of your audience is interesting talking about any other aspects or some ideas that we have talked about, please contact me, and I'd be more than glad to comment on
Awesome.
those.
I love it. That's the best, buddy. It's great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob. It's a pleasure seeing you again.
And as always, we thank you so much for listening and watching. Today's show was produced by our team at the Storytellers Company in Mexico City and Los Angeles. And you can always find, follow, subscribe, and share our show as found on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you find your favorite podcast by searching Entrepreneurial Thinkers with Rob Ryan. You can also follow along on our various social media platforms for clips and contents at Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And if you'd like to connect with me, our host, you can find me just about anywhere on social under the handle I am Rob Ryan. Thanks, and have a great day.